1,000 obsidian-armored shock troopers hit the ash-choked dirt in perfect, trembling unison. They did not kneel before a conqueror's raised blade, nor a planetary governor's sigil. They bowed their helms before a dusty, unarmed human medic, and the bleeding, bioluminescent woman he adamantly refused to stop shielding with his own frail body. Why was he protecting her? What kind of mind looks at the galaxy's most feared warlord and sees only a patient in need of patching up? That same suffocating taste of vaporized ozone. She had first choked on it 14 hours ago, pinned beneath the shattered ferrocrete of the command spire. A low hum, then the agonizing flare of nerve endings knitting together. Vanya forced her gold-flecked eyes open. She expected the cold, sterile light of an obsidian hegemony interrogation cell, or the jagged silhouette of a scavenger coming to finish the job. Instead, the ambient glow of a hovering pulse wasp drone illuminated a cramped, makeshift clinic carved directly into the planetary ruins. A human male stood over her. He possessed no armor, no rank insignia, and no weapons. His hands were stained with her glowing blue blood. He was wiping a surgical scalpel on a scrap of synth cotton. Impossible. Which meant her internal threat assessment biometrics were malfunctioning. The hegemony taught a singular, immutable truth regarding interspecies warfare. Survival required absolute dominance, and mercy was a vulnerability exclusively exploited by the weak. Yet this human, an enemy combatant on a quarantined world, had clearly spent the last several hours reconstructing her shattered ribcage. She watched his forearms cord and release as he sorted through a tray of mismatched medical supplies. He possessed every tactical advantage while she lay paralyzed. He should have executed her. She analyzed his movements for hesitation, for the telltale rigidness of a soldier waiting for a bribe or an interrogation team. There was nothing. Only the exhausted, methodical rhythm of a healer who had been awake for too many rotation cycles. The air smelled of metallic antiseptics and old, dried blood. Instead of a weapon, he picked up a scratched, universal pain stabilizer injector. "Your bioluminescence is fluctuating," he said. His voice lacked the harsh, guttural command tones she was accustomed to. "That means the synthetic grafts are settling. You are going to feel a sharp pinch." He pressed the injector against her neck. The agonizing fire in her chest vanished instantly, replaced by a cool, artificial calm. Vanya stared at the dull plastic casing of the injector in his hand. It was a cheap, mass-produced tool. To him, it was a lifeline to be given freely. In her empire, such relief was rationed only to officers who still held combat value. This human operated under a bizarre philosophy that defied all hegemony logic. He viewed suffering not as a tactical leverage point, but as a universal constant that demanded immediate intervention, regardless of the uniform worn by the casualty. The hegemony's fleet is already darkening the sky, but the real collision is about to happen right inside this tiny, dust-choked room. Beneath the drone's hum, a distant explosion rattled the clinic walls. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Kalen, she had gleaned his name from the faded embroidery on his jacket, did not flinch. He simply reached over and shielded her foreline from the falling debris. He treated her not as the empress of a ruthless regime, but as a fragile collection of organs and bones that needed to be kept functioning. "They are hunting," Vanya said. Her voice rasped like grinding tectonic plates. "Let them hunt," Kalen replied, turning his back to her to calibrate a monitor. "My clinic is neutral ground. Pain has no side here." He didn't understand what he was saying. The hegemony did not recognize neutral ground. They recognized only targets and assets. When the Vanguard breached this sector, they would burn the clinic to the bedrock simply because it stood in their path. Vanya tried to sit up, a command forming on her lips, but her damaged musculature betrayed her. She slumped back onto the cot. The roar of atmospheric thrusters rattled the clinic's meager surgical tools, vibrating up through the soles of Vanya's boots. Dust rained in thick, gray sheets, coating the sterile trays. Kalen was meticulously adjusting the 4-drip rate, his focus entirely consumed by the fluid dynamics of saline and synthetic blood. He was completely ignoring the localized earthquake tearing his sanctuary apart. Vanya shoved herself upright. She ignored the phantom ache radiating from her freshly fused sternum. She needed a terminal. "Give me your comp slate," she demanded. He didn't look up. He merely tapped a fractured monitor screen. "Grid is down. Local jamming. Fools." Her vanguard was executing a standard sweep and purge protocol. They were blindly hunting for her transponder signal while intentionally deafening the entire sector to prevent ambushes. If she didn't broadcast the supreme override sequence, they would glass this coordinates block within minutes. She dragged herself off the cot, her legs trembling underneath her. She braced her weight against a rusted alloy table and ripped the primary console panel open with her bare hands. Hot sparks showered the dirt floor, stinging her ankles. Kalen finally stopped sorting bandages. "You are going to tear your sutures," he noted. "If I do not reroute your subspace transceiver through the drone's power cell, we are both going to be reduced to atomic vapor," Vanya gritted out. Her fingers flew across the primitive human interface. She was bypassing his civilian security protocols, forcing the hardware to broadcast on highly classified hegemony command frequencies. It was a desperate, crude electronic distraction meant to spoof her biometric signature to a decoy location 3 sectors over. A deafening metallic screech drowned out the drone's hum. The distraction had failed. The clinic roof tore away entirely, exposing the bruised purple sky of Xylos Prime. A colossal obsidian destroyer hovered directly overhead, blocking out the sun. The sheer pressure of its anti-gravity drives flattened Kalen to his knees, pinning him to the ash. Heavy armored boots slammed into the dirt outside. They breached the perimeter in a synchronized wave of black carbon armor and raised plasma rifles. And now, as Kalen threw his frail body between the targeting lasers and her recovering form, the true absurdity of his philosophy crystallized. He was actually trying to shield her. A medic with no weapon, possessing only a fragile human skeletal structure, was staring down the barrels of the most devastating infantry force in the cosmos. He was protecting the enemy from her own soldiers. Vanya stepped out from behind him. She did not shout. She simply activated the bioluminescent command sigil embedded deep within her collarbone. A blinding, golden crest flared to life, instantly synchronizing with the retinal displays of every soldier present. The effect was instantaneous. Weapons dropped to the dirt. The vanguard commander practically collapsed into the ash, his helmet striking the ground with a dull thud. The rest followed, a cascading wave of absolute, unquestioning submission. Kalen remained standing in the center of it all, his hands still raised in defense, blinking at the kneeling army. He looked from the trembling soldiers to Vanya, the realization slowly extinguishing the gentle, clinical neutrality in his eyes. He had spent the last rotation piecing back together the architect of the galaxy's suffering. The ramp of the command ship lowered, waiting to return her to a throne of blood and iron. Vanya paused at the threshold. She looked back at the human. He wasn't cowering. He reached into his coat and held out a small, dull plastic box. A spare pack of universal pain stabilizer injectors. Not an offering to an empress, just a provision for a patient with a long journey ahead. If an empire can be brought to its knees by a simple act of healing, what does that say about the true nature of power? Subscribe to our channel and join us tomorrow as we unearth another story where humanity rewrites the rules of the cosmos.